So I'd like to start. Minister Gatete, sir, are you ready?
Ready to do what? He's calling for you.
We want to hear the story about Rwanda, about investing in Rwanda, and I start with that, with the Honourable Minister, Dr. Mate Anthony, no, Mr. Claver Gatete. Would you like to come up here?
Sure.
Thank you. It might be easier. I also want to mention to all of you that the conversation today is just not on the podium, but can be continued as the speakers finish their remarks as well. Thank you. Sorry.
Yeah, thank you very much, and thanks to the team at the high table, and dear colleagues. It's always puzzling when you are coming straight from the airport. You haven't reached your hotel, and then they tell you, go and speak about Rwanda. But I think this is a very good opportunity for us to interact and talk about Africa, because Rwanda cannot be talked about in isolation. And it's always good to see friends like Carlos from the ECA, who is here, who has been helping us in terms of developing our own economy. I just want to say a few words, and then I'll be very, very happy for the interactive discussion that we'll be having. The only thing I can say for Rwanda is I'm sure that most of you know the whole history about Rwanda, the tragic events that took place in 1994, and since that time we have been trying to recover. And I'm just happy to say that since the time we started the MDGs, the 2000, up to now, our economy has been growing on average, I was counting, 8%, and that has been great. But for us, the economic growth alone is not enough. We've been also looking at the poverty reduction, which as 2 weeks ago, we saw the numbers that by the end of last year, at least our poverty levels have declined up to 39.1%, which is quite significant by any standards. And for the last 3 years alone, we have managed to reduce the extreme poverty from 24% to 16%. That's the highest that you could ever go. And our target is that by the year 2020, we should have no more poverty, extreme poverty. So we've been trying to really address the two tracks of development. What we are trying to see is really what the impact the economic growth have had, and that's why 2 weeks ago we are looking at the numbers in terms of the impact in health, in terms of education, in terms of reducing poverty, in housing, in all the other areas that matter for ordinary people. But at the same time, where we have been putting emphasis as Rwandans is really looking at the 4 pillars that we are focusing on: the economic transformation, the rural development, the productivity and youth employment, and also the accountable governance. Those 4 pillars that are really helping us in terms of achieving our vision of becoming a middle income country. And also the key focus here, we've been seeing that despite what has been happening in terms of the global shocks, right from the global financial crisis to the most recent when for the yuan depreciation, we are seeing that as we get more integrated, we also have to take into account the global challenges. And that's why we are looking at not only Rwanda in isolation, but Rwanda within the context of East Africa, and Rwanda within the context of African continent. And that's why most of our leaders have been saying infrastructure was very key, and we need to do more. But there are a few things that we need to do, which really sometimes do not require even investors or even resources. We've been doing an experiment, for example, in the East African community. If I take the example of the Northern Corridor from Rwanda to Uganda to Kenya, and we've been saying, why don't you have the infrastructure actually working for us? We've been working on the railway. We've been working on the electricity so that we could harmonize even the grid of the electricity. And right now, we are even ready by the end of this year, because of the efforts of our heads of states of Kenya, Uganda, and Rwanda. We'll be importing from Kenya. We'll be importing electricity from Kenya, because we are now harmonizing on the 400 kilovolts. Initially, it was even different. We have also said, why don't we, first of all, allow the people to move around, to move within the region. And now you just use an ID card to move from Rwanda to Uganda to Kenya, and vice versa, by plane or by road. And this has helped really in terms of allowing the people to move. We have also said, why don't we remove the barriers that are really preventing goods from moving from one country to another. And that's why the heads of state, I remember it was a story that was initiated by our president when he put the people on the truck from Mombasa to Kigali and back. And it doesn't matter whether it is a bribe, whether it's a roadblock, whether it's a way bridge, and really they were taking, how many days are you taking? We found that from Mombasa to Kigali, you are taking 22 days. 22 days. And when they sat together and they say, we can do something, they say, let's remove all the roadblocks, let's remove all the way bridges, let's remove all the hurdles that are preventing goods from moving, let's make sure that you have one insurance rather than 3 insurances in the 3 countries. And now the time has reduced to now between 4 to 5 days in Rwanda from the 22 days. It's now taking less than that to reach Kampala, just because of the decisions, no other investments that were taken. The heads of state also decided to create the one area network within the region. That means you don't need roaming charges in our own region. And that has worked. The companies have benefited twice, and also ordinary people have benefited that. I'm just trying to show you the importance of that kind of integration. We are now doing the same for the Central Corridor with Tanzania and Burundi, so that we can now link up the whole region. By doing that, we are also encouraging all the goods to move freely from either Mombasa or from Dar es Salaam and linking to other countries, including the DRC. We have also linked the East African payment system. It means that the East Africans, the Uganda, Kenya, Tanzania, and Rwanda, have now succeeded in linking their real-time gross settlements. That means they can transfer money and they can pay in the local currencies without necessarily having to change their money into the US dollars. That one is working. We are now working to see how we can link up the capital markets of the region so that you can do cross-border trading much easier and you can do cross-border settlements much easier. That's what you're working on. What I'm saying is that regional integration is very, very key for anybody to win, for anybody to succeed. Investing in Rwanda, I like it. We have the airport ready for grabs, which is coming up, a new airport that is the size of the Joburg, that is ready to go. We have energy. We have areas in so many other sectors. We need people to invest, but also you should come and invest, thinking of the bigger market within the Eastern Africa, within the East African community, but also in the whole Eastern Africa and the rest of the African continent. And that's how the investment would make more sense. In the case of Rwanda, we are moving fast. Time is not always on our side. And that's why we are saying that the longer you stay out of Rwanda, the longer you miss the opportunity to interlink with the Eastern and Central African states. We belong to the East African community. We belong to the Common Market for Eastern and Southern Africa. We belong to the Economic Community for Central African states. We also belong to the Economic Community for the Great Lakes region. So once you're in Rwanda, you take advantage of us being a member of all those kind of regions so that you can do business within the entire region. So I encourage everyone here to take advantage and come to Rwanda, establish your headquarters, and be able to link with the rest of the Eastern and Southern Africa, but also the Great Lakes region of about 21 countries. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir, for your very clear remarks and about the investment opportunities in Rwanda. By the way, the minister was in UNDP from 1997 to 2000 as the national economist for Rwanda, actually. So you're on secondment now to the Rwandese government from the UN.
Doing business in Africa, you can't afford to be without Africa Investor.